Hello, 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 everybody. My name is Michael, or Kiratze online. Hopefully, you guys are having a positively fantastic day so far, and I'm here with another episode of You Should Play, and this is You Should Play Disco Elysium. And this game is developed and published by Zom Studios, ZA/UM if you are searching them up, but their website is just zomstudio.com, ZAUM. This is such a cool game that I had to make a video about it. I've played about, I would say, 5 to 6 hours, so I'm really early in it. So these are sort of my first impressions, as most of these videos are, but I can tell sort of it sets the tone for what the rest of the game is going to be, and I'm very much looking forward to streaming the rest of it, or at least most of it. And yeah, so what is Disco Elysium? Disco Elysium is the best way I can say it is just a detective role-playing game, and set in a fictional world. And yeah, that's pretty much the general idea of it. Now, this game is extremely unique, though, in how they sort of do the gameplay and how they create this RPG, because normally when you play these games, it's going to be something like Baldur's Gate or something like that, where there's going to be a lot of dialogue and stuff, but you're going to have the combat elements. If you're going to be looking for a situation like that, this game is not going to be for you. This game has very little combat elements in it. If they do have combat elements, it's usually going to be wrapped in sort of dialogue choices and sort of dialogue checks. So it's not going to be very action oriented. So just right off the bat, if you guys aren't into reading, this game is 90% reading, 10% sort of walking around, exploring the world, and clicking on stuff. So just bear that in mind. But the writing is so good and the dialogue is so good that you just get immersed in it, and time flies when you read this. And I'm absolutely loving it. It's just very well written. Not only that, it goes from very intriguing stuff where you're just really trying to figure out what's going on, and it's sort of like a page turner, and then it flips over and it goes into some of the most hilarious dialogue and situations that you can find yourself in that I've read in a game, because it's just the shenanigans your character can get up to in this game is endless, depending on what skill makeup you have. And yeah, you are a detective who essentially has woken up from a huge hangover where you've essentially gone on a serious bender and don't remember what you've been doing. You come across the fact that you were investigating this murder, and the world opens up from there. You come across some very interesting characters right off the bat. One of them becomes your companion, and off you go. And that's where you're at the start of the game. The very, very cool thing about this game is its skill system. So you can see all the skills here, and there's so many different ones to choose from and to level up, and they all are really important. Now, it's very, very tough for people like myself who like to not be, terrible in certain areas, and to make a balanced character is tough. But because of the amount of variables in this game when it comes to the amount of skills, you are able to create a very unique character, which can get you into extremely unique situations. And the game is very much about you creating your detective, your ideal detective, or at least the detective you want to play with. So you can easily make someone who is super dumb but super strong and super agile, or you can create someone who's super empathetic but maybe super not smart intellectually. You can make someone who's both super smart intellectually and super smart emotionally, but maybe weak physically. And those can all have very serious consequences in your playthrough. Every single time you are in a dialogue with someone, with an NPC, when you're talking to them, things are going on in the background. Additionally, there are certain situations where you will take more of an active approach and make active skill checks. The basic one being something like, lifting a heavy object off the ground, or jumping across a gap in some buildings. And those will be some active skill checks. But throughout this game, you'll be able to see some of the gameplay here. You will start to see more passive skill checks being made. For example, here my perception went off without me actively trying to. Oh wait, no, that one was actually active. But you'll start to see checks go on that will give you essentially more insight into the situation, or insight into the character you are talking to, and that can really sort of direct the flow of how your dialogue and how your choices are made throughout the game. And a lot of them are extremely important. Like, not only will they give you experience, but they will give you extra bonuses on other checks, for example. And this being a detective RPG, It's really about you trying to figure out what's going on and essentially what happened to you because you woke up and essentially forgot what you were doing. You've lost your memory due to your alcoholism. And so you start to learn more about yourself and start to learn more about what you were doing in that area. And it's really all intriguing. They've really set up the story well. But at the same time, not railroading you, really leaving it open, because they do give you, like, right out the door, you're able to go off and do whatever. You don't even have to pay attention to the body that's hanging out in the backyard that you were investigating. I've ignored that so far for most of my playthrough. And I've just been doing side stuff and talking to people and doing things that way. So there's some really cool mechanics going on with the dialogue system that create for some very interesting situations. And with the dialogue, the cool thing is, as well, is each one of your skills is essentially a character inside your body. You have a lot of these sort of inner monologues that go on with your character, and they will influence you in certain ways. Sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, depending on if you failed your check or succeed your check. Sometimes they're not even there to essentially hinder you or help you. They are just there to give more insight into the situation, and then from there, you can make your own choice, which is awesome. So, for example, my detective I made is very empathetic. My character, I thought that I want my character to be very empathetic, to be very personable and relatable, but not exactly super smart maybe with the crime scenes, and really sort of weak physically. But I wanted to make him sort of the people's person, so that's sort of what I did with my skill allocation. So for my empathy, for example, my empathy goes off a lot while I'm talking with other people, and it will have a lot of successes, and it'll just let me know sometimes what the other person is feeling or what they're thinking or what their idea is. And then that actually actively helps me make a better choice for the dialogue choices underneath, without me actually having to do any checks. Other times, for example, your perception might go off or something like that. So it's really, really cool, and it really gives you the feeling that your choices matter, and also just that your skill allocation has a very big impact on those choices that you make, which will in turn lead to some pretty interesting consequences and interesting situations your character will definitely get in. Additionally, it's important with your skill allocation that you don't try things that you aren't good at, or at least not without weighing the risks, because there are game-ending choices in this game. Now, that being said, there is a very frequent save system. You can save scum essentially as well, so don't fear that. But, I have read about people making choices with a poor stat allocation where their character and game has essentially ended within the first hour because something bad has happened. Not necessarily them dying, but you can actually have things like maybe your stomach couldn't take seeing the first dead body, and your character just gives up, and they're like, okay, I can't do this anymore, and your game ends there. So there's things like that can happen. And I've only been playing for about 6 hours, but I think the system goes deeper and deeper the further that you go. But through the dialogue choices as well, you can get some things that can help you mechanically. So because it's a detective game and you're exploring dialogue choices, when you talk to one person, that might actually actively help you with other things. Or if you've done some proper checks, maybe my empathy had some insight into a character, that might actually give me a +1 to another check further down the road with that character. So there's a lot of things like that in the game, and it makes for a very interesting experience and a very varied experience between people, and that's a really, really cool thing. Now, there's a lot of other things that I could talk about, like the thought system, where you're actually able to have these inner thoughts that are sort of passive things that you have to sort of internalize, that throughout, that will take a certain amount of time, like 3 to 5 hours in game. That will give you a temporary bonus or temporary penalty, but will give you a more permanent bonus after you're done internalizing that thought. And there's a lot of those in the game, which is just another cool system and another way to augment your skills later on. Additionally, things like your outfit and items you carry will actively hinder you or help you with your stats. Some items are required for certain situations, things of that nature. But yeah, art style, amazing. Soundtrack, phenomenal. And the story is actually just super intriguing. You really do feel like you want to learn what's going on. It does capture that sort of page turning idea when you're reading a book. And every single conversation's like that. That's the cool thing. It's not just the whole main story. It's every single conversation you get, and you are interested to see what's going to happen next, whether it be bad or good. For example, I failed a check and I essentially ran away from this guy I didn't like, jumped backwards with my arms extended out with double middle fingers, and I crashed into an old lady in a wheelchair. Now, that would generally be extremely bad because I failed that check, but it actually led to a pleasant conversation with that old lady, and I actually got some extra bonuses and extra positive things from that. So it's not always a bad thing to fail stuff in this game. That's the cool thing, is you failing this game doesn't mean you're done. It essentially just puts you on a different path, which can open up into just its own branch of choices. And there's so much to do in this game and so much to explore that I'm looking forward to doing every inch of it, whether it be on stream or off stream. But yeah, if you want, I'm going to be streaming this game quite a bit for the foreseeable future. So if you want to check that out, you can find the link to that in the description below, my Twitch channel. Would love to have you over there. I'm voice acting the characters and I'm reading pretty much everything. It's just a lot of fun. But yeah, this game's awesome. It's about $40 on Steam. And yeah, if you are into just a very good story, you don't mind reading, again, it's like 90% reading, and you don't mind a slower paced game, definitely pick this up. It's an extremely unique cRPG, and I can guarantee you've probably never played anything like it. I think the closest game people have related to is Planescape Torment, if that's your thing. So that's the best thing I can do to sort of relate it to something. But yeah, that's gonna be it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.